How to avoid being killed by someone like Elliot Rodger. This video was made to show people the evidence regarding 3 different personality disorders Elliot Rodger seemed to possess. The more people understand the criteria on the 2 most dangerous personality disorders, antisocial and narcissistic personality disorder, the better they can be at avoiding these people and saving their lives. Common indicators of personality disordered thinking and behaviors are 1. A refusal to work, usually on one's beliefs. 2. Rigid thinking style and behaviors that are not helping the person have a better life. 1 will often indicate that therapy and medication has not helped him. These individuals see themselves as victims and identify as victims of others and of the world. They have an attitude that nothing is good enough, and they make others feel they cannot do enough for them. They seem to always be in crisis, are surrounded by drama, and chronically complain yet reject doing what is needed to change their thinking, beliefs, or behaviors. People with personality disorders refuse to change, and no one can make them change. I am going to point out each report that others made about Elliot, and his own self-reports that meet different criteria on avoidant, narcissistic, and antisocial personality disorder. Elliot Rodger was not psychotic, schizophrenic, or bipolar. He was not hallucinating or paranoid. Elliot Rodger, like many mass shooters, was simply personality disordered. He was raised to be highly socialized and was capable of hiding his true beliefs. By paying attention to his real attitudes, observing his behaviors, and asking questions without judgment in order to gain further insight into who he was and what he truly believed, you and your family will be better able to avoid getting hurt by people similar to Elliot Rodger.
Yet another sign of violence. Frustrated after being ignored by girls at a party, he tried to shove them off a 10-foot ledge.
He was such a good liar.
Repeatedly refusing the advice of therapists, at least one of whom had recommended medication.
But Elliot would say, I'm not sick, I'm not going to take that. And because he was of an adult age, he refused to not only take that medication, but refused to go back to see that particular doctor. She wanted to have a mental assessment of him. It just turns out that there is no way that you can actually do that unless he voluntarily does it, or unless he commits a crime.
Did Elliot volunteer? Would he have done it?
No.
He didn't.
Of course not.
Personality disordered individuals often refuse to follow their doctors' and therapists' recommendations and show little to no improvement after years of therapy. They are rarely given their true diagnosis of personality disordered. Personality disorders often emerge with teenagers, but more likely when children are younger. In these interviews, Elliot's father is not reporting knowledge about his son's personality disorders. Parents are often in the dark about what is really wrong with their child. Many personality disordered children have personality disordered parents. This is the most important part about these people you need to know. People with personality disorders do not think they are a problem or have a problem. They know, they believe that everyone else has the problem, including therapists and psychiatrists. This is why more mental health services will not matter.
I will drive down to my father's house to kill my little brother, along with my stepmother, Sumaya, as she will be in the way. I will specifically target the good-looking people and all of the couples.
I'll be a god, exacting my retribution, just for the crime of living a better life than me.
Who would have thought my life will turn out this way? I didn't start this war, but I will finish it by striking back. Finally, at long last, I can show the world my true worth.
Elliot identifies himself as a victim of the world and claims that the world has made him who he is in life. He has decided that he has a right to enact vengeance. This is a privileged person who lived well and whose parents provided him with the therapy and psychiatric services he could have utilized, especially if there was abuse in his present life or past. Therapists are mandated reporters of abuse and are trained to look for signs of abuse. Elliot Rodger had mental health support, but rejected it.
He would have these really loud phone calls, talk about things that aren't going well in school, and things just weren't working out. They started off just as concern calls, but there were a lot of them, and they got angrier and louder, and he was junk for a lot of the later ones.
Chronic frustration, anger, and complaining are indicators of a personality disorder. An increase in drug use is common and a highly used coping skill. The use of positive coping skills is nearly always rejected because they take more work, time, and effort.
I've seen a lot of the news for other school shootings, and the things that they always say, like, how do you stop something like this? And they always say, you look at the signs of the people and what they're like before they do this. And they always describe complete recluses who just stay in the room, but they have some sort of paralyzing issue. And that's exactly what was happening with Elliot. He never left his room.
Some people with avoidant personality disorder may start with social anxiety, but Elliot refused to do the work necessary to change. His narcissism was too strong and took precedent over his need to have perspective, to have an open mind about relativity, and to work on the flexibility needed to change. Personality disordered people are emotional children. They refuse to grow up and take personal responsibility.
We invited him to a few things, me and my other roommate, when we would go out. We'd knock on his door and say, hey, we're going, to the gym, we're going to play racquetball, or going out to eat, do you want to come? And he'd be like, oh, thanks for the offer, not interested. Oh, no one seems to want to hang out with him, and it just got more and more serious.
Notice his former roommate asked him to socialize with him on numerous occasions, and Elliot refused. Now we hear that after being invited out on many occasions, he then complained about no one wanting to hang out with him. This is very typical personality disordered behavior.
So I had a pretty bad feeling about Elliot at that time.
Jealousy and envy. Those are two feelings that would dominate my entire life and bring me immense pain.
He just had illusions of grandeur. Even if he couldn't make it himself, he wanted to feel in a position where we would somehow provide it for him. He was jealous of me, the way that I looked.
Did you talk to Elliot about sex?
Yeah.
What did you say?
How it's so important to present yourself as a human being from the heart outwards, and not to be weird. And I say weird because it is weird when you think girls are going to throw themselves at you.
Narcissists have a pervasive pattern of grandiose fantasies or behaviors, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. However, they do not lack extreme empathy for themselves.
I think he had a condition. He had a very seriously advanced mental condition, and I think that whatever would have happened, even if he got a girlfriend, wouldn't have been able to have made him into the happy human being we wanted him to be.
Here, his father reports he knows something was very wrong with his son, but he seems to not know about personality disorders. He then reports knowing that no matter what was given to his son, it would still never have been enough to make him happy. People with personality disorders notoriously never have enough, and no matter how much others try to help them or do things for them, it is never enough. Parents of personality disordered individuals often have no idea about their child's real diagnosis and are exhausted and extremely confused about the situation. The reasons for this vary. Often, personality disordered individuals are not diagnosed because insurance will not reimburse for their treatment due to lack of positive change in the client. Many mental health professionals enable clients due to faulty belief systems, or they simply have no training. Many do not want to deal with confronting the issue with the client and the family. The client is not going to change anyway, so why bother? This is why the public, especially parents, need to fully educate themselves and their children about all personality disorders and make sure their children are not exhibiting any of these criteria.
He was unable to engage, and it was difficult to engage. And I saw lots of people trying to engage with him.
Again, it is reported that others did reach out to Elliot and tried to engage him. Being avoidant, he rejected engaging with others due to his rigid expectation to always be admired, accepted, and automatically liked without ever having to feel the normal social awkwardness of slights, misreadings, misunderstanding, and disagreements. This type of thinking and attitude are not symptoms of social anxiety disorder. People with social phobia report frustration with themselves and anger that they cannot seem to overcome their anxiety. Their anger is targeted at themselves rather than others. Their anxiety mainly involves doing something to embarrass or humiliate themselves in public. Their anxiety often leads to panic attacks. People with social phobia are motivated to decrease their stress and are accepting of therapeutic interventions, coping skills, and working to overcome their disorder. Social phobia can be treated successfully with medication management. Persons with personality disorders often refuse mental health services, or they spend their time complaining and rejecting interventions. Neither Elliot Rodger nor anyone around him reported him having panic attacks or expressions of anger and frustration toward himself for not being able to get over it.
Enraged by the sight of young lovers, he acted out for the first time, throwing coffee on one kissing couple at Starbucks. His anger, now targeted at women, drew him to misogynistic websites, online forums where he once wrote, "Start envisioning a world where women fear you." He sent you links to these websites.
I was disgusted and I called him up and I said, "Elliot, why are you going on these websites? This is negative, this is evil, and you shouldn't go on that."
I'm sophisticated. I'm magnificent. I have a nice car, a BMW. Well, it's nicer than 90% of the people at my college. I'm polite. I'm the ultimate gentleman. And yet, you girls, you never give me a chance. I don't know why. You know, I put a lot of effort into dressing nice. These sunglasses here were $300.
Narcissists are superficial, lack substance, and do not believe in working for what they want. They try to take the easy way out and use people for what they can get from them. This speaks for itself.
I feel so invisible as I walk through my college because none of the girls there pay attention to me. And that's just such an injustice because I'm so magnificent. I deserve girls. I'm gorgeous. I'm gorgeous. I'm gorgeous. I'm gorgeous. For the last 8 years of my life, I've been forced to endure an existence of loneliness, rejection, and unfulfilled desires, all because girls have never been attracted to me.
He is expressing himself as a victim of others. He is at once proclaiming he deserves unlimited power and love, and at the same time proclaiming to be a victim of others because he is not getting the power, love, and attention that he desires.
College is the time when everyone experiences those things such as sex and fun and pleasure, and I will slaughter every single spoiled, stuck-up, blonde slut.
Here he claims that everyone else is getting what they want, and he is getting nothing. He assumes whatever he wants to justify his beliefs. Many people have a few of these behaviors. What people need to look at is how many criteria are being met and a pervasive sense of entitlement with a victim identity. This often leads to vengeance and retaliation. Narcissists have high correlations with misogyny, classism, and racism. From the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 4th edition, he met criterias 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 on antisocial personality disorder. People with personality disorders refuse to work in many ways. They expect others to take care of them and meet their every need. He did not work and was financially enabled by his parents. Elliot's father fed into Elliot's feelings of entitlement by giving him status symbols such as a BMW and money for extravagant purchases. Considering his behaviors, he should have had to work for any extras he wanted, like Gucci sunglasses and a BMW. You have to have 5 criteria to be diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. Antisocial and narcissistic people are the most dangerous on earth. He met criterias 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7 on avoidant personality disorder. You have to have 4 criteria to be diagnosed with avoidant personality disorder. He met criterias 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 8 on narcissistic personality disorder. You have to have 5 criteria to be diagnosed. Note that when the police came to his door, he was able to charm them and socialize well enough to avoid being caught. When he had to, he could be social, convincing, and charming. When confronted with a more powerful male presence, he performed well enough. That is narcissism. To educate yourself and your children, read Fraud in Mental Health by The Therapist on Amazon Kindle and Barnes & Noble Nook.